Eric, can I recommend something? Can I show you guys something that I just been through a whole bunch of workshops in the last 2 weeks with clients and fairly sizable groups of people across different lines of business. And what struck me was that people don't have a clear view as to how they would separate consumers from customers from clients. It doesn't seem that there's a common understanding as to what these differences are and why they are different and how you would drive your engagement through recommendations. So if I can share this with you, it's hand-drawn, it's pretty rough, so you can just bear with me. This is what we're going to discuss in the workshop, and let me just give you a quick glimpse of what the thinking is. You got these 3 pillars. On the left, you got what's known as a consumer, and a consumer is somebody, if you had to look at kind of Noam Chomsky's view of the world, is that you got a thing called the mindless consumer that essentially gets programmed by brand-based marketing and the fact that you are fundamentally disconnected from the people or the company that makes the product that you are engaging with. So that means that if you think about the top line being interaction that run across the top of this chart, if you're a consumer, the interaction style, when you go buy toothpaste, or you go buy your morning cereal, or you go buy maybe even some of your clothing that is in mass market, you have no relationship, you have no conversation, you have no input into the people who have designed it, manufactured it, produced it, shipped it, even stacked it in the shelf by the time you consume it. So that means that there's a fundamental disconnect between the person that consumes it and the person that makes it, ships it, or basically produces it. So that means that the entire story of engagement is driven through brand-based promise. And the relationship that you create and the data that is created around that is mostly driven around sales. Because you don't have an engagement, you can't really go and talk to somebody about, like say you want to talk to somebody, at Colgate and say to him, why did you put the blue and the white and the red in the toothpaste? I don't want any blue, please. There's no option. There's no ways that you can actually do that because the relationship is entirely remote. So that means recommenders that's going to engage with people purely based on brand-based options. The final measure is the sale. When you move to customer, the construct is that I get to know a little bit about you. I know your name, your address. I might know some of your preferences, and I've got no other insights about you. I've had no ability to converse with you. So if you have to think about when you go to your retail bank, or maybe even your telco company, or anybody that is maybe a mass market service provider, and you go open up an account, it is not in their financial interest to ask you what your challenges are, or to invest any effort in you because it's too costly. There are humans in the system that are just too costly to service when you want to collect information about a person. So that means a customer relationship or customer centricity is for me to get some insight from you, a little bit of data from you, or whatever is cost effective, and then segment it. And when you get to client, it's when you have a deep relationship. So if you had to go to your doctor or your private banker or your lawyer or whatever it is, the only way that they can service you is by you telling them what it is that is of interest to you, or you asking them a question and them interpreting your situation and giving you a response back. So we kind of could see that in a digital track. If you look at the second track in this chart, the concept of sales and the way in which you make money based on the recommendations that you make, if it's a consumer, is really the only measure that most companies have. What if you could track what time of the day, under what conditions, what people normally buy together, what the basket looks like, all the other data points, how much more value you will have from that engagement if you only had a consumer relationship and you can turn it into a client relationship. As part of your engagement, you can provide a recommendation and ask 1 or 2 questions at a time, and the responses sets the context for the next recommender or the next experiment that you are running to make sure that you truly get to know that community. So that means it could be quite transformative. In the customer space, because it's so costly to service a lot of these customers, that means that recommenders that are designed just for you. So that means that from your menu items, the color and the background of your web or your app, the options that are available to you, because you are more engaging in the customer kind of space, it means that the engagement now becomes far more important, because it's beyond transactional. It's far more engaging and bi-directional, and it's basically a conversation. And then when you get to the client space, a lot of what you do, and if you had to think of this as a situation, when you go buy toothpaste, you don't have a conversation with a shopkeeper to ask them the best way to use the toothbrush with that particular product in that situation, because you know that they know nothing about it. They're purely representing a particular brand or a product. But when you go to your dentist or you go to your doctor, you will have unstructured conversations. And in the unstructured conversation, there will be an interpretation of who you are and what you do. And that interpretation is completely undocumented. So could the Holy Grail be, and this is kind of the question, could the Holy Grail be if you could establish experiments and recommendations that can take a consumer or a customer and turn them into a client? And that means that continuously learn about their preferences, about the things that they are interested in, and feed off that to make sure that you make the exact correct recommendation or totally incorrect recommendation in order to determine what the person really wants and don't want.